Hello and welcome to Loving Me, Myself, and Life with me, Joni Misiak. Today, I would love you to embrace who you are. Now, what does that mean? Well, I spent so much of my life, especially, my teens, 20s, comparing myself to others, how they were living their life, versus how I was living my life. How just me in general, myself compared to them. I even had a point where, even in my 30s, actually, because coaching, I compare my coaching business to coaches that were in the industry for years, thinking that I had to be exactly where they were. And the funniest thing is, even if we were in the same amount of years as in the coaching industry, I'm a different person, which means I'm a different kind of coach. We're all unique and beautiful. So when we get comparing, in compare mode, and we compare ourselves to others and think that our life should look like theirs, then we have this problem where our reality, it causes conflict, right? Because we're then not being true to who we are. And I found that in my coaching business. I found that in my life, parenthood, right? You can look at other people's parenting skills and things like that. So what I've learned to do is you kind of take the noise around you and you turn down the volume. Like, it's still happening, and you celebrate other people and you honor where they're at, but you need to really go inward and turn up your volume and just become aware of how you've been showing up. What do you do in your day? And why are you doing it? You can get caught up in I did this because, it's always been done this way, or, that's just how my mom did it, or, things like that. And it's just becoming aware. There's no judgment here, no blame, no nothing other than awareness. It's kind of like putting a spotlight on, and that may sound scary, but just kind of a focus on just where you're at. And are you doing the things for you, or are you doing things because you think you should do them? And it's just having this idea. And so again, it's awareness first. And then it's really getting to know yourself better and honoring who you are. So what makes you you? And it's coming up with what are your personal values? And a lot of the time is looking at, has there been something where somebody does something and you're like, oh, why did they do that? Well, that means that they've probably went against one of your values. So it's checking on that. And what you can do if you don't have any idea what your personal values are, is just start taking notes of when, you do something that makes you feel really good, or when something, like I said before, something triggers you and you're like, it's like they're clearly going past one of your values. So a big one for me is family, that I make time for my family. And another one is that I lead with love. Love is I'm not perfect. I am going to tell you that now. But whenever I'm having some frustration feelings, of whatever, I try to go back to love. And another personal value for me is honesty, being truthful to myself and to others around. It's a huge thing because I put on so many different masks. I, was a people pleaser for so long that I really, really have come to honor trust and need trust in all things. And that's a huge personal value for me. Anyways, so I'm just sharing a few of mine, and it's just going back and really just start thinking. You can even Google personal values, and there'll probably be lists all over the internet. You can find a lot of things just to have words. And what you can do is when you look through the list, if anything kind of stands out to you, write it down. For me, I love nature. Nature's a huge part of me. And it took me a long time to really honor that part of me as well and get surrounded and figure out what that looked like. But even just knowing that it's there, right? So it's really, like I said, turning down the noise around you, the shoulds, I have to's, and really just going inward and asking yourself, who are you? What are your values? What do you love to do? What brings you joy? Now, not all of this is going to happen overnight. In fact, it's not going to. It's this beautiful journey. It's not this like one and done kind of thing. It's a journey. So again, it's awareness. It's also understanding your past, like where did you come from? Letting go of other people's expectations. That's a huge one. Huge. And I've had to do that myself quite often. Again, recovering people person. A recovering people pleaser. So it happens. It's letting go of other people's expectations of us because everybody has expectations. They might not realize it. And even I have expectations. Like I'm working on the flow, but I forget the other day I was like, something didn't happen. I'm like, there's my expectation. I expected something, but that's not what happened. So we all have these ideas in our head of how our life is going to play out or how the day is going to play out or even interactions with other people are going to play out. Not always, but sometimes. And other people do too. And then they expect us to act a certain way. And I know from personal experience that as I was growing and changing and really embracing who I was, people around me that knew me from my childhood still see me as the old Jody. They don't really know me now because they haven't been following along. They just kind of expect me to still be that person I was in my 20s or my teenage years. Like they're not seeing the growth. And I don't know if they're just, anyways, that's their own being. We're not going to go there. Anyways, so it's really important to just block out other people's expectations. Because if we do things for other people because they expect us to, then we're not doing it because we're being true to ourselves. I have to say on a side note that, of course, like if you have kids, and especially if they're at an age where they can't feed themselves yet, they need to be fed and got to get the kids to bed at a good time and all those. I'm not saying neglect your responsibilities. If you have people that are relying on you and you're taking care of them, that is different. I'm talking about how people in your circle, your extended family and things like that might expect something of you. But that's not who you are. And it's just honor. It's really like giving yourself a big hug and embracing who you are. And that's where boundary setting comes in. And, conversations about like, hey, this isn't who I am anymore. And things like that come in. So it's really important to just kind of take some time for you and get to know who you are. And then that's when you can really set some boundaries, have some conversations. But it can be hard to have those boundaries in place or even have a conversation about boundaries before you know exactly where those boundaries should be. Where those boundaries, need to be put. So who are you? What makes you you? What do you love to do? What would you love to experience in your lifetime? We can really get caught in other people's lives and what they're doing and be like, I want to do that. And it's just really being true to you. What do you need? To be fulfilled and full and energized. What do you need? And I've shared before on this podcast. Sorry, Alex, hold on. I've shared before that I look at when people share their schedule with me, I like feel so stressed out because it's so much fuller than mine. And there is times where I would be like, I need to do more because other people are doing more. But now I know what level of things I can do. And on occasionally I'll check and be like, am I just not doing this because I'm lazy? Or am I doing this because I really am full? Like my calendar's full and I need this much time to take care of me. So it's checking in every so often and making sure you're true to you. But like I said, first you need to like be aware of where you are and what you need and honoring that part of you and really just being you, because that's so important. And because you are important. You are unique and beautiful, and you have this magic that no one else in this world has. And when you try to live in other people's shoes or in this idea of something that you've had, instead of just really embracing who you are and just being true to who you are, the world doesn't get to see that part of you. And I'm saying this with so much love because I spent so much time trying to be somebody else, trying to fill people's expectations of myself, trying, and yes, you might lose some peeps in your life if you, really are you. Because I know, I was that people pleaser, right? And I would really be good at making others happy. And if they're, they're narcissistic and they need everything to go their way, I was really good at feeding that. And really, I was always friends with them because friendly, I shouldn't even say friends, but I was really good, really, really good at rubbing their ego and things like that I didn't even know. This is where awareness comes in, by the way. I didn't even know I was a people pleaser until I started really going on my journey and really, anyways, taking out removing the layers and unpacking things. Anyways, so I was really, really good at it though, because I could sense what they needed from me. And I always was, I always agreed with them. I always, played it cool and yeah, of course. I was really feeding into that. But then it left me not being me. So once I started embracing who I am, they didn't like that so much. So people in my life that were, always happy with me because I was always saying exactly what they wanted to hear. I was always, rubbing their ego and, I was just saying all the right things for them and doing all the right things for them. But then when I stopped and I started doing things for me, that's when the nasty stuff came out. That's when things started taking a turn because I wasn't doing what they expected of me anymore. So yes, things might not be awesome all the time in your relationship circles. However, when you are being you, when you're really being true to who you are and embracing that, then you attract the friends that you're meant to have. I have some really solid relationships now, and it's because I'm being me. I'm not being fake. I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not trying to fit into somebody else's expectations of me. I'm just being me. I'm being honest. I'm being truthful. And obviously, I don't say truth out oh, your outfit is horrible right now. I'm not being mean, but I'm being true. So when somebody says, how are you today? I used to be oh, I'm wonderful. When I wasn't. I was a mess inside. So nowadays, most of the time, I'm I'm great. But other times when I'm not having a good day, I'm it's not the greatest day today, but I'm trying to turn it around. I don't like to try to become a bummer. I'm not a big fan of negativity. But at the same time, I don't want to lie anymore. So I find a way to word it that it's yeah, I'm not having the greatest day, but, we're moving forward, or at least, trying to work on it kind of thing. So I hope that makes sense. But know that just because you may lose some peeps in your life doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have no friends anymore. The ones that are really true friends that actually care about you will be the ones that are still around you. So it's not about having this fear. I'm just sharing the story of, when you embrace who you are, it's really fun what kind of comes out of the woodwork. And it's really learning about you and really just, giving yourself some extra love. Be ooh, that happened. So if you find that you tend to compare yourself to others, one of the biggest things I've done for myself in this area is limit social media. Now, I'm not saying get off of it forever or anything like that. You can even start with maybe having one day where you unplug and you don't look at that. Or if that just is not in, you're no, not happening. Even just become more mindful of how you feel before you go onto social media and how you feel after. And just being aware of what comes up for you then. And then also remind yourself that people tend to share their best moments on social media. Now, obviously, some people might share their struggles and stuff too, but it's filtered and you're not seeing their whole life. You're only seeing parts. And their life is going to be different than your life. And it's okay because we're all unique. We're all different. And it can be so easy to get caught up in comparing, and it can make us feel really crappy. So really just try to be aware of that. So first off, like I said, social media. And it's even if it's like, okay, if you're on it a lot, then maybe just take a couple hours of unplugging. But like wherever you're at, look at that and see where you're at. I honestly haven't been on social media for almost a year, just because I've been working on healing my body and like all the things. And I don't need the outside world really right now impacting that. And it was just a big stressor in my life, and I haven't been using it. That being said, I will be coming back to social media at some point to really reconnect with people. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I am just unplugged and loving it, to be honest. Because then I get to really just look at my world around me in a different way. Anyways, but that's me. But that's what I'm doing, right? So it's really honoring and embracing who you are. So who are you? What do you need right now? Ask yourself those questions. Journal about them. You know, maybe where have you been comparing yourself to others? What areas even? There's so many different ways we can compare ourselves to others. What do you need right now? And maybe it's to go on a date with yourself and really get to know yourself better. Because the more you get to know yourself better, the more you can do things for you. And it'll be easier to say yes to the things that light you up and no to the things that don't. Also known as boundary setting, right? And honoring and being true to you. So the more you get to know yourself, the more you can embrace yourself. So start with just being aware of where you are right now, how you're showing up, and embrace that. So you can just be you, because you alone are amazing. You don't need to live somebody else's life. You don't need whatever it is you think you need to be you. You're already you. And when you start embracing it, you will start living your life on your terms. You'll really be like, yeah, this is what I want, or heck no, that is not what I want. And you'll start attracting people in your life that reflect your personal values, that kind of like flow with you instead of going against you. And you will kind of see people that, you know, you don't really gel with or mix well with, kind of just disappear a little bit further into the darkness, you know, or into the noise, like, and just kind of fade out. And then you can really breathe and be you. I hope that makes sense. And I hope, you know, and I really hope that this has, you know, inspired you to embrace who you are and to be you. I've been really, really embracing my own life over, you know, probably a decade, but like it really, you know, at least 5-6 years for sure. And as I started to really embrace who I am, beautiful things happened. And if I didn't embrace who I am, I would never have moved my family across the country. Like I really started to look at who I personally am and stop living family stories, living expectations, and these ideas of others. And I really started becoming true to myself. And it's really beautiful. And it's a subject and a way of life that I really love. And I've been working on a book. It's, you know, I'm hoping to get it out in the world someday in the near future. But it's been a book in the works for quite some time because I've literally just been living and breathing it. So I hope to share someday in the near future that it'll be coming out. But that is where I'm in right now. I'm working on it. And this has just been a very small sliver of what I talk about in the book. Anyways, so I hope you can embrace who you are. Remember, it begins with awareness. And you are amazing as you are. So just start embracing it. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, or you have a topic you'd like me to talk about, please go to the description of this episode and there'll be a link and you can just share with me what you'd like me to talk about. Thank you again for being here. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye for now.